Josh, there's an intruder on the ship. Josh.
Huh?
There's an intruder on the ship.
I'm trying this kitten video. He's got little tape stuck on his paws. It's adorable.
What? Come on, you knucklehead.
All right, fine.
All right, you ready?
Yeah. Hey, wait. Do we have any more AA batteries?
Worry about that later. Come on.
Hey guys.
Dave? Hello, welcome to the Skate Podcast. I'm Brandon.
I'm Josh.
And I'm David.
Alright, so today's episode is Back to the Future, starring an archaeologist in search of an alien skull. Alright, we actually watched this a long time ago, Josh, because we're planning on doing it, so I'm going to do my best to interpret my notes. I haven't had a chance to rewatch it since then.
I wanted to rewatch it today, and then I didn't get a chance to, and I was like looking at my notes, and I was like, what was I even talking about here?
Yeah, we also have Dave returning to the podcast.
What's up, folks? I'm back.
Yes. How you been?
I have been very well. Very good.
That is very good.
And I'm just happy to be here.
Alright, so I think all three of us like this movie a lot.
Agreed.
I like it a little bit.
Just a little bit. You're wearing a Back to the Future shirt, Dave.
I did. I wanted to put on my Back to the Future t-shirt in preparation for today's episode. It got me in the right, frame of mind. And
now, is that a new shirt that looks old or an old shirt that looks old?
A new shirt that looks old.
Okay. All right, Josh, why don't you start us off with some trivia here?
All right. Today is episode 38. We're talking about Back to the Future from 1985, directed by Robert Zemeckis and produced by Bob Gale. Stars Michael J. Fox, Christopher Lloyd, Leah Thompson, Crispin Glover, and Thomas F. Wilson. Currently has a 96% on Rotten Tomatoes. It was made on a budget of $19 million, and the box office was a little over $381 million. The inspiration for the film was based on Bob Gale discovering his father's high school yearbook and wondering whether he would be friends with him had he went to school with him. Eric Stoltz was originally cast as Marty, even shooting some early scenes for the movie. Michael J. Fox, however, was the first choice, but was unable to do so because of his role in Family Ties. After Stoltz was let go, a deal was made that Fox would do his TV show in the day and go straight to the movie set at night, only getting about 5 hours of sleep on average. One of the heads of Universal Studios wanted the title to be Spaceman from Pluto.
Ew.
The movie was rejected 40 times before it being greenlit. Early concept drawings showed the DeLorean looking very polished and clean as if it had been manufactured by a huge corporation. It was rejected as they felt it should look like someone built it in the garage. Huey Lewis makes a cameo as one of the judges at the band audition. Mark Hamill did the singing for Johnny B. Good. He is credited as Marty McFly. Michael J. Fox and Crispin Glover were both in Family Ties and in High School USA. James Wood was considered for Doc. The 1955 Mayor Red Thomas was the bum on the park bench when Marty returns from 1955. There have been several comparisons made between this movie and Peabody and Sherman. Back to the Future holds the record for staying at number 1 for 3 months. In early drafts, the time machine was a refrigerator.
They just couldn't get enough of that refrigerator, could they?
Yeah. One of the biggest reasons they chose the DeLorean was because it would look the most like a spaceship to the people of the 1950s. The tall blonde guy in Marty's band was actually his guitar teacher. The other pictures Doc has on his mantle besides Thomas Edison are Isaac Newton, Albert Einstein, and Brent Franklin. When the movie was finished, there was no plan for a sequel. The To Be Continued was added in the VHS.
Really? So that wasn't in the theater then?
Correct.
And it's not on the DVD or Blu-ray
They
now.
removed it again, yes.
Huh.
There's only about 32 effect shots in the entire movie. The score was done by 85 musicians, which was the most used at that time. Christopher Lloyd's grandfather was one of the founders of the Texaco Oil Company. Even though Leah Thompson and Christopher Lloyd had been in 6 movies together, the garage scene in Back to the Future is the only time they speak together on film. John DeLorean wrote Robert Zemeckis and Bob Gale a letter thanking them for using his car in the movie. And in a 2015 interview, Zemeckis said, "There will be no remake, prequel, sequel, reboot, spin-off ever."
As long as he's alive, right?
Well, as long as he's alive. I thought I've heard that
so
he has
I would like for him to live forever, if that's the case.
Well, I thought I heard he... Does he have the rights exclusively to the movie?
I think that's what I heard.
I think he's going to leave it to his kids and stuff.
Good.
Okay.
Because
I hope so.
What will happen is Disney will try to buy it and then make a whole universe based around it, and then it'll be a Back to the Future
the
movie
closest
every year.
thing there, I guess there's a little CGI game segments to a mobile game.
Yes, and
that's
I played
kind
it.
of somewhat considered like if it would be a fourth, so to speak.
Sorta, yeah.
Okay. Well, that doesn't count.
Yeah.
It's entertaining mildly, but I wasn't a big fan of the game.
So a lot of the things you brought up in trivia were about the cast and who was cast and who was considered. I can't imagine this movie with the main actors being anybody but who they are.
Yeah.
Right.
Especially just Marty, Doc, and probably Biff are the most.
Yeah.
I can see maybe Leah Thompson being played by any girl in a way. That, I mean, she didn't. There's no problems with her.
No.
And obviously they did recast Jennifer in the sequels. And
You know, it's funny. I never even noticed.
Do you know why?
contract issue?
No. Her mother was sick with cancer, and she
Really?
chose not to come back to the sequel to take care of her mom.
And the other person they recasted was Crispin Glover, but that was because...
Well, he had big issues. He was trying to say that he felt he should be paid the same as Michael J. Fox and that he was basically on par with him. They fired him. They
Wow.
used his likeness with the clips, obviously, from the first film.
See,
that
that's
you see
another
from
one
the
I never
second
even
one.
noticed.
Yeah.
And
well, that's on purpose.
He actually, I think he was able to sue them for that, for basically like...
Because there was some footage.
Yeah, because now in sequels, or when they do movies, like these guys are signing away their likeness for toys and lunchboxes and whatever else. But we're going to try to stay on the first movie.
Yes, I'm sorry. It's going to be
okay.
real difficult for me to stick to the first movie.
All
I'll
right.
do my best.
Well, then let me just say, there was no plan to do a sequel.
Yes, I realize that.
The story goes that...
I think even if they had the to be continued at the end, like it still could have just been all one movie, and then like...
Well, yeah, because I get it. They were trying to end the movie in a way that
They
was
just
like
go
a
off on their next
Western.
adventure.
You know, riding off into the sunset
Right.
with no plans of elaborating on what that might be.
Bob Gale has said many times that they had
Leave it
known...
mysterious.
Yeah, that if he had known they were going to do a sequel in the beginning, he would never put Jennifer in the car at the end of the first movie. Because the first thing he had to do was knock her out because they didn't have anything to do for her.
Right.
Yeah,
Yes.
well, that's one of the things I like about this movie a lot. Is like even though it's part of a trilogy, like it really feels like it wrapped everything up nicely. And if they wanted to continue, they could.
It's like how I feel about The Incredibles. I feel like that movie could be a one and done movie. I'm thrilled that they're doing a sequel, but
Yeah, one of the problems a lot of movies have today, and especially like
sequel fever.
Marvel can get away with it because they're consistently at least good. But like some of the other series that are coming out nowadays, it seems like they're too wrapped up in trying to tie everything into like what's going to happen down the line instead of just making a good movie.
Them super sequels.
Yeah.
You know, it's just...
I give Marvel a pass because they do a good job at it. The other ones, they can be iffy at times. So.
Okay, so here's what I want to know. Have you guys ever wondered, how did Doc and Marty become friends? How did they meet?
That is weird. I was wondering that.
Like,
I have wondered that as well, and I think that they probably... I'm not sure. I might be remembering this wrong, but I think they sort of addressed that in that weird game thing.
Okay.
Where I think they talked about it. But
Okay, very well.
I could be completely wrong.
have you guys ever watched any of the cartoons?
No.
When I was a little older, they were showing them. They were older even by that point.
Yeah.
And they actually got Christopher Lloyd to do little in-between segments. It was like one of those educational shows where,
Who released this movie? Was it Fox? The movie?
Universal.
Yeah, this is Universal.
Okay.
So basically, it was kind of like the Super Mario Brothers show where like there would be live action segments and they would do the cartoon. So Christopher Lloyd, like whatever, maybe there might be something in that particular episode about some kind of different kind of science. So he would like talk to the kids about how this works or blah, blah, blah. Anyway, but I noticed in the cartoon they had like the train time machine, the DeLorean time machine.
I remember this.
Jules and Vern, his kids were there. Clara was there. You know, it was just, you know.
I remember
I
this.
watched a few of them.
Speaking of cartoons, you said Sherman and Peabody. That was the dog and the kid from Bullwinkle?
Yeah, and
Yes.
they made a movie about it too, like
The CG movie?
I'm not
Like
very
7
familiar
years
with
ago.
them, but I knew it was
think
about
maybe
time
6 years
machine
ago.
or time travel, I should say.
yeah.
So how-
I used to watch Bullwinkle reruns on like Nick at Night or Nickelodeon, something like
Peabody
that.
and Sherman was the first movie I ever took my daughter to.
Okay.
And I remember it was like, wow. I remember thinking how Back to the Future-esque it was, and it reminded me of Back
do you remember when you first saw this movie?
Actually, yeah, I had known of it because they're like Nintendo games and people would talk about it and you'd see stuff maybe on TV about it or it'd come on TV, but I never watched it. I remember in the mid-90s or so, McDonald's was doing some kind of promo for Back to the Future. I don't know why, but you could go there.
Well,
and...
95 would have been the 10-year anniversary.
Okay, well, it was probably then.
Okay.
And you could go there, and I don't know if they gave it away if you bought a certain item or if you paid like $4, you get a tape. So we got like the first one on VHS.
I did hear about that, yeah.
So I have that somewhere floating around my house.
Okay.
And then I can't remember if I bought the other two or what, but
Okay.
I ended up seeing them all after that.
I saw these at his house, first time ever. So I met Dave in 95, so it was either 95 or maybe 96 when I first saw
Yes.
them. I remember...
You had never seen them before that?
I don't think so.
Wow.
I loved them instantly, and I remember when I was a kid drawing pictures of my own car, time machine, with like the little time portal thing coming in, you know, ahead of it, like where it was about to go through.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and I can recall seeing this movie in the 80s because my dad was a big fan of it, and so this thing, we just had it on tape as soon as it came out on tape. We had it.
Your ultimate censored version.
What's the ultimate censored version?
Oh no!
It's a homemade.
Okay,
Okay,
well,
we'll talk about that later.
No, we gotta... No, stop. We gotta do this now. Tell me what's happening here.
okay. So, my father would go through all our movies that we had on VHS when I was a kid, and he would record the audio out
Or scenes.
or scenes. Usually, it was just audio.
Yeah.
With if there was a curse word that you would hear in any particular scene,
And if it was
instead of hearing the curse word, you would suddenly hear like the Weather Channel
Or a radio.
or something else, and
like
you would hear
those
like
music
or like
channels.
C-SPAN real quick.
That's really funny.
Just censor it out, and then it would just be like a 3-second thing, and then it'd go back to the regular.
Did you ever think that was funny, or did you did that just seem
I
normal?
just tolerated it because I knew.
Well,
I
how old were
wanted-
you?
How old was I?
Yeah.
I mean, this went on from when
the
I
time
was
you were
like
born?
from when I started watching movies till I was about 13.
So
I
did you
remember-
grow up thinking that that's what was
No,
in
no,
the
I
movie?
knew it was
Because he
happening.
did it with all his movies.
I knew what was happening. My dad told me this is what
Yeah,
it did.
I remember
Okay.
when I got them on VHS and you'd watch them uncut, so
Yeah.
to speak. You were like, I remember one point you said like, "Wow,
Feels like a whole new movie.
yeah."
It does. Well,
That's hilarious.
I gotta elaborate on that too. The first Back to the Future film.
Wait, what
by
movie?
the
Back
time
to the Future?
Yeah.
Okay.
by the
One.
time
First one.
Yeah.
by the time I started getting into Back to the Future, the 80s tape that we had was no longer around in our house. So I had to I tried to find where I could buy it again. But here's the thing.
Did your dad get really mad when DVDs came out?
No, actually.
Because he couldn't do that anymore.
No, what? Okay, what was it? What was it?
So you,
Oh yeah,
the
so in
DVDs
1996, that was when I had to basically get another copy of this movie on tape because I didn't have it anymore at that point. But this is what I found out because I was doing internet research at that time, and I was trying to find it. I couldn't find it anywhere.
You were
So,
doing internet research in '96.
BTTF.com was up
Where
and
were you
running.
doing? You had the internet?
In the mid 90s. What?
You had the internet
Well, yeah, by like 96.
in your house.
96, 97. Yeah.
Okay.
And so I remember I found BTTF.com, and I was like, okay, they got to have answers for me because I need this movie.
Hold on,
And-
wait. We don't know what BTTF.com.
Backtothefuture.com.
Well, we don't know what it is today. I don't know if it's still Backtothefuture.com.
I think it-
No,
is it?
it's the
Still
same
exists.
website. It's,
Okay.
It's been up
Go
and
there
running
at your own risk.
the whole time.
That's all I'm gonna say.
Why?
Who knows what it could be? It could be anything.
It's Back to the Future.
Okay.
BTTF.com, ladies and gentlemen. Anyway, so I found on their website store, they had all 3 movies and like a bonus, like behind the scenes tape, all in one beautiful box edition.
You still have it?
I don't have it anymore, but it was like the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen in my whole life.
Sorry,
So I
Miranda.
ordered it. But here's the thing: up to that point, they had told me that if you tried to go anywhere and buy the first Back to the Future film on tape anywhere, they said that at that point in the mid '90s, it was out of print.
They weren't making them anymore.
They weren't making them anymore, and so they just weren't making.
Well, it'd only
them.
be a few years before they started doing DVDs, really.
Right, and well, the DVD of Back to the Future didn't come out until
That's
2002.
Well, DVDs didn't really start to get big until around
Yeah, that's
2000.
right. Yeah.
Now I do know that
thought it
the
was
movie,
2003.
the movies were on Laserdisc,
Yeah.
but that was like a weird, limited edition thing, as far as I know.
I've mentioned this before on the podcast. I don't know if they have one for Back to the Future, but they actually had, and they were vinyl. They were basically
yeah.
records. They're, what are they called? CED. Look it up on Wikipedia. It's really cool. So they were movies that were basically on records. It was something that they started to develop in the 60s, and by the 70s they had it created, where basically it was a record player that would play movies.
Yeah.
And there's some really weird things about it. Like, if you go to the Wikipedia and read about it, it's interesting. But if you actually look at it, it's really cool because it doesn't look like a Laserdisc or CD, but it also doesn't look like a vinyl record. It looks like a shiny vinyl record. And the art on the... they came in, like, basically record sleeves.
Yeah.
So it had, like, pretty cool art on it and stuff. And I always thought it'd be really cool to have it, like, half sticking out of a sleeve and then frame it like that. And then you can have them, like
Like a
framed
shadow
around
box
your
or
movie
whatever.
room or something.
Yeah. Anyway, I forgot to say this earlier. When I was finding out about trying to get the first movie on tape, and they told me it was out of print at that time, the other two movies were everywhere. I don't even understand that. Why the other two movies would be everywhere readily available for purchase, but the first one
They couldn't
wasn't.
sell them.
So I thought that was odd.
I'm sure between the three, the first one's the most popular.
it was-
Although all three are good.
The only way I was able to get this movie on tape during that time was to go on the internet to the website and get it. So,
Okay.
yeah.
So you went to the internet and you found it to purchase and they mailed it to you?
Yeah, I bought it on their online store, and however many days later, it showed up on my doorstep in a big, beautiful trilogy box set.
So did you have fun watching movies at his house with all the extra editing?
No. After that, when I got that box set, it was
Uncut.
unedited. It was there were no. My dad
It
was
was
like
the Tarantino
yeah.
edition.
But what's funny is the version that I had that was edited was. So my dad also, he was into making copies of tapes. Like, we had two VCRs on top of each other.
Rent
And
movies
so he'd
and
put a
copy.
blank tape in the top and the movie in the bottom, and we'd, like, copy it. And so after we copied it, then he'd go and edit the copied version. And so, but he had this really long length blank tape. And so what he was able to do is he was able to put 1, 2, and 3 back to back all on one tape.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
because
how
with
you
VHS you could record at a slower
And so
SP, LP, or whatever.
he
right?
did
or
this.
faster, depending.
And he did this, and then he went and censored all 3 movies. But
So what'd you do
Man,
with the
that
main
had to have
copies?
taken forever for him to sit there.
well, here's the thing.
Or was that just for him?
At the time, it was just that we had rented the movies and copied them.
Oh, okay. So he didn't
And-
try to censor your
No,
store-bought cut, or-
no, he didn't censor the ones I got online. No,
Okay.
because
That is funny. I think it would be funny if he did it to the ones he rented to.
Yeah.
He'd probably get in trouble for that.
But here's also another related note. Like I said earlier, the first movie was out of print, so the only way I was able to own it before I got it on the internet was it came on TV one day,
And you recorded
and
it?
I recorded it on TV, and then I went and rented the sequels and recorded those, and then I had all
Your
3.
dad could have worked for TBS.
And so it was really a frustrating being a Back to the Future fan in the mid to late 90s was really frustrating because of that, because you couldn't find the first movie, and that was like, I mean, it's almost pointless. It's almost pointless to
I hear tarantulas.
to try to watch them, I think.
Yeah, you should
without
have
the
just went to
first one.
McDonald's.
But yeah. So, but all ended well when I found that thing online. So,
Good stuff.
yeah.
I always wondered,
Good memories.
there's a lot of product placement in this movie, especially for Pepsi.
Pepsi.
Pepsi and Pepsi products.
Yes.
Although there is a Coke as well. Coke
Is there?
reference, Yeah.
Is there?
Tab.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah.
But the thing that I was wondering about was, like, when you see at the beginning Doc's house, or whatever it is, it seems almost like it's just a garage or something. There's nothing there.
Yes.
Where is that in the town? Because in the
Would
present...
you know
and
why he lives in a garage?
No.
Would you like to know?
Sure, go.
Okay.
I know.
Yeah, because I told you.
They told me recently.
Okay. So in the beginning, when they're showing like all the clocks, they're just kind of panning around. You see a newspaper clipping that Doc clipped that says Brown Mansion burned. He burned down his own house.
Okay, so
to
that was
get
on
the
his
insurance
property?
money. No, I think he burnt it down on purpose to get the insurance money to fund his time machine.
And he just bought a garage somewhere?
I think so. I think he just
That
basically
makes
didn't
sense,
care
'cause-
what he lived in. His passion, his
Here's the
dream
thing
was that.
also about that is you see the address on the garage when Marty takes off on the skateboard at the
Yeah.
beginning of the movie. It says 1646. But in
When he
the
looks them up,
50s,
yeah.
in the 50s it says 1640.
I watched this with my buddy
So
Rob.
he probably didn't move far away from his original.
Yeah, maybe
house.
he sold it to Burger King.
What was the name of the street? Was it the same street?
Riverside Drive. No, maybe
Riverside.
it wasn't Riverside.
But it was John F. Kennedy Drive in the 50s.
Yeah. And
Or it was a block past John F. Kennedy.
Okay, because we were trying to figure out. I watched this with my buddy Rob, and we're trying to figure out where that laboratory was, that garage or whatever he had was, because we knew it was next to a Burger King.
Yeah.
They made sure to show that Burger King, which I thought was funny.
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
and
but we could figure out, like, when he went back in time, he's like... when he went back in time, we're like, well, why doesn't he know? Like, wasn't that the Doc's garage? So that's...
Or I take it back.
John
F. Kennedy Drive was what it was called some point after the 60s. Because remember, his granddad didn't know.
Well, it probably wouldn't have been JFK in the 50s.
Yeah,
he wasn't present
until
until 60.
Riverside Drive, which Marty didn't know what that was. Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, lots of road names were changed over the years.
Yeah. You ever wonder why Doc felt the need to make such a huge amplifier? Like, what was?
I wondered why he even has that.
What was the experiment in that? Like, what was the point?
That was another thing we were thinking.
And I know he had like goofy stuff to like turn on the lights or to turn on the TV, feed the dog. He had like little like goofy stuff, but like I don't understand what's
I
the
almost
big
wonder
experiment.
if
Sort of like
maybe,
Wayne Zelinsky in Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
I almost wonder if maybe like it was something that Marty had talked him into or tricked him into building. Like, hey, I wonder if you could do this.
Could be. And
I dare you, Doc. Make
what
the biggest amplifier
is the big
ever.
experiment with setting all the clocks 25 minutes slow? Like, what is the purpose?
Right.
I don't get it. Like,
Speaking of all those clocks, I thought it was hilarious in the intro when they're panning really slowly and you see a little bit of each clock. You see the one clock and there's a guy hanging off
that
one
is
of the
based
arms.
off a Charlie Chaplin movie.
And
Well,
to me, it seems like a really good way to foreshadow the end of the movie.
Yeah.
Sure, but I think that was technically was it Charlie Chaplin or it was something.
I didn't know
I
it
was
was
reading
anything...
about that. It's from a movie already. Where
Okay,
a guy
I didn't know
hangs
that.
off the clock hands.
Well, that's probably where they got their inspiration too. Then.
And of course, even though this whole intro to the movie is so, like, in my opinion, really kind of agonizing to get through for like the first 3 minutes of the movie.
Why?
And just, I've always just had a hard time with, like, it's just, there's like no music. You just hear the clicking of the second hands in each of the clocks, and I'm just.
Do you not like that sound?
No, I want to get to, like, because maybe it's because of the fact that I grew up watching all three of these movies like one movie. Like, I have a hard time separating them, honestly. And so the intros of the other two movies are so much more exciting compared to the intro of this movie.
Like that nice long sky scene.
Yeah, or like all the music
in
and
the sequel.
It's like there's music though, and it's just more exciting compared to. So I always had a hard time, even as a kid.
Well, to me though, it shows. Okay, you see.
I get the point of it. I get the fact that
he's so wrapped up in his work. Like they say, what do they say about Albert Einstein? Like he didn't comb his hair and he didn't groom as much because he was so dedicated to
whatever he's working on.
His stuff. Like basically,
I get
Doc
it,
is like.
I totally get it. It's just hard to get through, in my opinion. But I think that the news report.
He lost his comb in a black hole.
Yeah.
The news report is so funny on that TV. How it talks about like. The missing plutonium, and you don't know it if you've never seen the movie.
Yeah. The movie is filled with lots of stuff like callbacks and foreshadowing.
Yeah. Little plot setup devices.
Yeah, there's not a lot that happens in this movie.
It goes to waste.
Yeah, nothing's really wasted. Like everything is for a reason and a purpose, which is how a good movie should be.
Right.
Oh, and that disgusting dog food.
Oh
man, it's just
Dave,
so
you're
disgusting.
making me hungry.
So I think it's funny. Most '80s movies are usually about like
a montage.
A kid chasing after a girl, trying to
80s
get that
montage.
girl. And not only is he not chasing the girl, but he's trying to.
He already has the girl.
He already has a girl back home, but yeah, like it's more about him trying to avoid the girl and hook her up with some other guy. Like it just didn't seem.
Oh, okay.
Like
I
a lot
thought you were
of
talking
80s
about
movies,
Jennifer.
girl
You're talking
chases
about
guy.
Well, there aren't a
guy
lot
chases
of
girl.
there aren't a lot of '80s movies where their mom is trying to date them. So
True.
This one's pretty unique in that sense.
Also, I'm going to say this. That is the tiniest guitar I've ever
Yes, it is
seen
goofy
in
looking.
my entire life.
Yeah, it is pretty.
I mean,
Which one? The one
the
he
yellow
gets
guitar?
on 85?
The yellow in the beginning
It's
of the movie.
like this big.
The body of it is like pocket
mandolin.
size.
So it's
But
more
the
like
neck of it is
ridiculous.
like standard. So
Yeah. Did you guys realize that the song that he's playing for the audition is "The Power of Love"?
I think I noticed that when I
Like,
rewatched.
it's-
I mean,
They
I
don't
thought it
sing
sounded.
it,
I
but-
thought it sounded Huey
Yeah,
Lewis.
Power of Love.
Huey
Yeah.
Lewis-ish.
Yeah.
But yeah, I didn't realize it was that exactly. One more thing back to Doc's lab, or back to Doc's garage. Did anyone else notice how when the phone rings, it's the fire alarm bell?
Yeah, he had it set up through
What?
that.
Why?
Because he'd probably be so busy tinkering with stuff he probably wouldn't hear it. He's
Yeah, it could be loud in there.
He's welding. Maybe he's like having to...
Or maybe he's deep in thought.
I mean,
Yeah.
I never thought about it. I just thought it was an odd
or
thing. That
perhaps even he's unconscious because he's hitting his head on something.
Yeah. Like, to go back to what you said about like not wasting moments, like the flyer, you know, like she interrupts it. You're not thinking anything. She gives you a brief history about the clock tower and gives him the flyer, which works out when he goes back.
Yes.
It's funny how well this movie does that, because I've seen examples of that done in more modern movies, and they make it so obvious.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
I know what's going to happen.
Yeah,
now.
where you'll meet a guy and you know that he's going to be the villain. In a couple years, he'll be the villain, and you know.
For sure.
But they just, they stuck little things. If you noticed him, you noticed him. If you didn't, you didn't.
This movie got me really, for a hot second, really interested in skateboards.
Yeah.
For I remember I would just go to, try to find if I could even do a skateboard, and I never could.
I had a little crappy skateboard when I was probably about 11. It was really thin, and it was yellow, and it was plastic.
I couldn't
I was
do
never
it.
good at it.
I tried, and I just couldn't do the skateboard.
Josh, skateboard?
Yeah.
I did try. I don't think necessarily due to this movie. That's because it was just big in the 90s.
Yeah.
Okay.
But,
and you said you hate skating anyway, though, right?
Roller skating.
Yeah.
Because it hurts me. I remember I used to watch this practically every weekend for a while. Almost every weekend I would watch this and its sequels.
I think you guys have watched it more than I have.
No, I'm just thinking because I was probably there for every time you watched it.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, I would. I remember watching all three of them back to back, for the whole night.
Yeah.
Sometimes it would take all night to get through them all three.
So, do you know that originally they wanted to do this time portal thing? When the DeLorean would go through time, it was almost going to be more like Bill and Ted, where it was this really lit up, crazy
I've heard
sequence
of, that.
of effects before he arrives out the other side of time. And then they decided, no, it should be instantaneous, and that's why it's you don't even see the wave when he first goes the first time. You don't see that until he's back the second time around to see it.
So what you're saying is, because the car lights up and then it leaves the trail of fire behind, but you're saying
yeah, that's right. You do see it when they send Einstein. That's right.
Well,
yeah,
you're saying
the first
a big
he does it, it's just a flashlight, and then you see the scarecrow.
But you're talking maybe a big circular thing that opens up and it drives into it.
I think so, but they also Bill and Ted when the phone booth's going through. It's the time tunnels, and they're
oh, you wanted to see them?
No, I didn't
traveling.
say I wanted to see it.
Well, that's
this is something they were talking about doing before they decided to make it instantaneous.
Now I think they did do something like that for Back to the Future: The Ride. Because
probably, I mean, it's you gotta jazz it up,
I remember going on the Back to the Future ride.
Where was that at?
It was in Orlando, Florida, Universal Studios.
How old were you?
I was 11.
Was it fun?
It was amazing.
I also did the Back to the Future.
Would you say you had the time of your life?
I
feel the
time of my life. Okay. No, but since then they have torn down the ride. It's not there anymore.
Well, Beetlejuice got rid of it,
but it is still available on YouTube if you want to YouTube it. You can look it and you can
hook it up to your virtual reality on your phone.
You can experience what the ride was like via YouTube.
So this is a little nitpick, but not truly nitpicking. Just it's funny. Okay, so the van that is holding the DeLorean in the beginning, he wouldn't be able to open the doors to get inside the car, right? So that means he got in the car, he pulled it in, somehow shut the door, knew when Marty was coming, had the door open up again,
let all those fumes and gas fill up in there,
pull it out, and then open the door for the big reveal. It was great. It looked awesome, but in real life,
I can't picture that scene.
Okay,
well, I know the scene.
Yeah, he asked him to come
but
meet
not
him at
that
the mall.
detail of it.
So basically, he's like, hey Einstein, where's the dock, boy? And then all of a sudden, the big epic, the little back hatch is coming down to the van. The DeLorean drives out, and then Doc opens up. Marty, you made it. But it's what did he do? How did he do it? He got in. Who shut the door for him? Who opened it for him? And why was he just sitting in there?
Well, he had the car hooked up to a remote control, right? Maybe he had some other stuff hooked up to a remote control.
Fine. But still, why was he just sitting in the DeLorean?
Well, he used the remote control to get it out. He got in, then drove in, and then waited for Marty to show up to be dramatic.
This is uber speculation.
Exactly.
That's crazy. I think it's kind of funny. This is a side note to in general. It is only recently that I realized just how whimsical and hilarious the town name Hill Valley really is. It never really clicked and occurred to me because a hill and a valley are opposites.
But they're next to each other.
But they're next to each other, but they're opposites. So welcome to Hill Valley.
That is kind of funny.
You never see them in this. I mean,
I guess I never think of. Plus, we have cities around us like Woodhaven and Flat Rock.
yeah, but I mean,
I don't know. It's just like
I mean, yeah, I get that. But
one was
I get
once
what you're
filled with
saying.
land.
Hill
Yeah.
Valley, they're just. I don't know. It's just
Yeah.
they're opposites,
Okay.
and I guess there's lots of hills.
Well,
and
in
lots of
Arrested
valleys.
Development, they wanted to name it Sudden Valley, which was a horrible name because it sounds like you're going to fall into a sinkhole.
Okay, tell me this: the 2 stopwatch thing. I don't get that. He has his stopwatch and Einstein's stopwatch. When Einstein,
Were they identical when
they were in perfect sync.
So that was to see if the jump was instantaneous or if it took time.
But how does a clock know that it's wrong?
Or it was
At
1
least
minute. They were
back
different
then.
by 1 minute exactly, right?
Yeah, but the clock wouldn't change. I mean, now, there's certain clocks like your
Alright,
phone
so-
switches, but like,
What's your question?
okay, so he has his stopwatches in sync. The one that he's holding, the one that's around
Well,
Einstein's neck.
this is what I think it does.
Okay.
Because he's got the stopwatch in the car with Einstein, right?
Correct.
And he's got the one he's holding.
Yes,
Sets them
to
both off
show.
at the same time. So they should be exactly
they were,
the same.
and they showed that. Yes.
Okay.
But when Einstein comes back, his is a minute behind, right?
because
I
he
think
just
so.
because for him it was just
So that was to see if what happens while Einstein's gone. Is Einstein just sitting somewhere for a minute, or did he go directly to that point? So by the, the
from
clock,
your point of view inside the car, from Einstein's point of view, it's instantaneous.
But I don't know. I just don't get it because again, I could set my clocks wrong on purpose, and the clock is not going to say, "Wait a minute, I'm wrong. I need to reset
no, what
myself."
happened was because like
Am
the
I
clock,
missing it?
the clock is still going.
Yeah.
Einstein gets in the car, and then he's 1 minute ahead
It's to
already,
establish-
like instantaneously.
Yeah.
It doesn't change the clock. The clock is going at its normal time.
Yeah, the clock is unconnected
But for
to
Doc,
the time machine.
A whole minute goes by without Einstein there. So that's what he's testing out.
Okay,
just
we'll have to
saying-
go
yeah.
more on that later. Why did the car like reappear and skid? Shouldn't it just appeared there? So you got to think it went to 88. It would have to slow down, hopefully not hit anything, like as it slowed down, right? So
Well,
really,
that's
the
what
car
happened
should
whenever they jumped. It was always still going.
Well, at
yeah,
that
but
point,
like they show it like look out,
at
it
that
skids
point,
across. It should have just kind of appeared like the newspapers when they changed,
like
Or
just
the-
sitting still?
Yeah, because basically they had to catch up to where it was. Like it should have just been sitting there. I think it was for dramatic effect. Of course, I get it.
well, no, I have to disagree. I mean, every time you see the DeLorean go through time, wherever it reappears in any time, you see it come
So
to
yeah, it reappeared a minute into the future. So once they caught up with that minute, it should have just been sitting there. Like it
But
should
like
just been
again,
oh, there it is.
You have to imagine what that's like from the point of view of inside the car. You're just going through an instantaneous, just like when right before Marty hit the scarecrow. It's just a bam, and suddenly you're still going. You're still rolling, and so
I don't know. I just feel like
there's
okay,
no way
if
it would.
I
Now the fact that Doc wasn't controlling it with his remote anymore,
say it would decelerate.
It would
after-
decelerate,
and then it sets there. And once they catch up to that minute, it should have just been sitting there. It should just appeared, kind of like the pictures when he fixed everything, and all of a sudden, like his brother and his sister just reappeared. To me, it should have just appeared. Again, I know why they did it for dramatic effect. It looks cool, but you know what I mean. It should have just been waiting there. It's like okay, if I said okay, I'm going to go 5 minutes into the future, and I'm going to be sitting right here. So I left this spot, and I sat here in the future, and I'm waiting for you guys to catch up with me. All of a sudden, it should be like I just appear here.
Dave, I have no opinion on that.
Okay.
I'm not sure I even follow what you're.
Okay.
Hey, no, stop.
Okay,
Let's
if
just
I
go.
Okay,
next point.
Yes. we're gonna get held up on this, and I'm not sure about it. So
I found it almost just as impressive that he was able to hook up a car to remote.
yeah, I saw.
Then
I've
like-
seen on MythBusters how difficult that really is.
Yeah, like they didn't show.
They
Like,
did
I
do
don't know
that
how
in
that,
Mythbusters.
how the car was able to, how he's able to steer it, how it was able to hold down.
Well,
gas.
on MythBusters, they have to install like an apparatus that when you control it with an RC like remote, there's a like a
Something to
hydraulic thing that presses on the gas,
Yeah.
or presses on the brake, or turns the wheel.
Yeah.
Like it's almost like there's a remote controlled robot
Yeah,
controlling.
exactly. Did you know there's actually a guy in a dog suit for some of those scenes?
I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
because they had to have someone be able to drive the car straight.
Quick little mistake I noticed about the Einstein scene, by the way. So what was it, like 1:20 a.m.
Something like that, yeah.
because when Einstein got in the car, the time circuits, the destination time and the present time read 5:35, which neither of those time he wasn't going to any time of 5:35, and the present time wasn't 5:35. But both the destination and the present both said 5:35. I thought it was odd, but whatever. We live
you're gonna have to elaborate that more on that later.
It said, I mean, we live in an age of HD now, so these sort of things are probably noticeable. But on the time circuits where you input your destination and all that, it said 5:35. And it's just a mistake.
Okay, yeah, so here's a question. You go through time, you might hit something. That's a building, a person, another car that's sitting there.
Hopefully.
So they live in California. Why wouldn't he just go like on the outskirts somewhere of town?
Yeah.
Where there's nothing, hopefully nothing in the past or the future.
Well,
they kind of talk about
that he doesn't.
it could be you don't want to hit like a rock or a tree.
Right, but I'm saying, okay, it's California, right? Isn't there? I don't know. I just feel like there was a better place to go than a mall to ensure that hopefully we don't hit something in the future or the past, wherever.
Well, they weren't even intending on going into the past. That happened by mistake. He only
right, but I'm saying that he was eventually going to do some stuff. So, like, I'm just
but
saying, like, even if you go into the
there,
future,
though.
I don't know. This house may not exist in the future, but there might be a skyscraper here. Who knows?
But we don't know if he was intending on doing anything else right at that moment.
Well, he was about to go into the future. 30 years. Look me up. I'll be about
probably
47.
maybe he was intending on driving off somewhere first and then actually.
Well, it all worked out.
No, remember I'm about to embark on a historic journey.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things I wondered is like, I wonder if like this town that they live in has like a history of missing children, and like they were all friends with Doc, and they all happened to vanish, and horrible experiments gone wrong.
So why wouldn't Peabody just plant another pine?
The dog?
No.
Or Sherman?
Mr. Peabody,
Okay.
the farmer. Old man Peabody.
You know what I think is really funny is when, I can't remember when he says it, at what point, maybe it was in the past, like the past Doc, but he was talking about Mr. Peabody he had some crazy idea about
breeding
breeding pine trees. And I'm thinking to myself, you stole plutonium from terrorists to build your time machine in your garage, and you're testing it out with your teenage sidekick, and you're calling this guy crazy for wanting to grow trees.
Yeah.
I thought
But
that
you
was
know what I
really
mean?
funny.
Yeah, like once his pine was destroyed, why not just plant another one? It still really could have just been Twin Pines Mall if you know.
Right.
And
No one would have known
I get
the
it.
difference.
It's just to be funny or whatever. But it's kind of
what's funny is when Marty went back in time when he was running away from the terrorists. I think this is how I always perceived it. I don't think he meant to turn the time circuits on.
No,
he was just shifting gears.
Right.
And his arm hit it, and then you saw it go.
Yeah,
they show him almost when he's at 88.
Yeah.
Noticing like oh crap,
no,
it wasn't intention.
Yeah.
So he gets the phone book when he's in the past, and he says, "Great, you're alive." He just told him the story about when he was able to recount the story to Doc, how he hit his head and thought of it. But when he sees his name in the phone book, "Great, you're alive." Like I just
could have just been something goofy to say that he.
It just didn't make sense. Like, how did he not realize?
He was wearing a life preserver the entire movie, so Marty wasn't all there either.
Yeah. And then I hated when he gets hit by the car. Well, he pushes his dad out of the way. The sound of his head hitting the pavement.
That's terrible.
I don't know. That bothers me. That sound.
I know that sound.
I didn't notice it.
And seeing his head, because he does it like...
You can just kind of hear,
it just doesn't... It sounds hard.
It's hard to... it's just hard. It sounds like a hard hit. It's really bad.
One of the details that I thought was pretty cool was when they go back into the difference between the future and the past. In the past, when the clock tower worked and they had just built it, it looked all super white and nice and clean. And then off in the future, when it's kind of like it's broken, and that area of town is a little bit dirty, you can see like it's not as bright. It's.
Do you know what I heard they did? Is they built the set for 50s and then they just trashed it for all the 80s. Like they just made it look run down. They it's like a nice grassy area with like a memorial for World War II or One. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think maybe
and then it's a parking lot in the future.
Yeah.
What's funny about that is the scene where they're in the 50s and they go up to the high school and Marty says, they really cleaned this place up. Looks brand new. It's clearly brand new, though. That's why it looks so clean. Because
it may not be brand new. They just might have taken care of things better.
It's newer in that.
Well, it's at least 30 years newer.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
What's really funny is when he's skateboarding through town, we noticed there was that theater, and I think it may have been the same theater that he goes to.
He crashes into.
There's two theaters in that town. I don't know if you noticed that.
I did.
The one that was showing the Atomic Kid I believe.
I was going to bring that up later, but that's funny. I thought it was funny in the 50s when, like, Marty basically is an atomic kid. He's using atomic power to time travel, and then the movie on the marquee says the atomic
Which I
kid.
wonder if that would have been
One of the movie titles they were considering?
well, no, I was going to say like a way to foreshadowing, because I guess in the original version when it was a refrigerator, they were going to have to use an atomic test site.
Well, he was already using atomic power.
Did
Right,
you watch
because
They wanted to build a bomb out of that stuff.
Yeah, but they ran out of plutonium, or they didn't have plutonium obviously in the past. So basically, the refrigerator, which was what it originally was going to be taken to a nuclear test site somewhere.
Gosh. Yeah.
And basically, by dropping the atomic bomb, Marty in the time chamber was going to then have.
That's
the
what the
power.
next Indiana Jones is going to be about,
Yeah.
by the way.
Did you guys see the documentary on Netflix about Back to the Future?
I did.
Yeah, we did.
Okay, good, because they did talk about that, and they talked about how they use that as a plot device
I
in Indiana Jones
didn't
4.
really care for it.
That documentary?
Yeah.
Okay.
I enjoyed it.
It
Well,
did not give any information I didn't already know from watching the behind-the-scenes features of the actual
Really?
disc. And yeah, all that stuff is in the.
Did anybody look up to see if the Atomic Kid is an actual movie?
I never even thought
No, I
to do
don't think
that.
so, because they showed that little mock-up of a kid.
It probably
with,
isn't,
like,
but it wouldn't surprise
his
me.
hair standing up.
I didn't see that.
Anyway, so I noticed one of the theaters, it said like XXX.
Yeah.
I actually wrote it down.
Something of Christ.
It said, in 1985, one of the theaters goes by, it says, Orgy American Style, XXX. And we're like, that's funny, let's wait to see if that changes. And I'm pretty sure, I don't know if it was the other theater that got changed to something of Christ, like a church. It became a church.
Okay.
Or if it was that one, if it was that one, it makes sense. But I almost feel like when Marty went back from the past and made the slightly better future, or slightly better 1985, it was still that. I'll have to go back and watch, but like I
can't
said, it's
remember.
been a while
Yeah, not
since
sure.
I watched it at this point.
I think it's funny that Doc runs out of his own house, leaving a stranger in his house. After he meets Marty in the past, he grabs his stuff and he's literally running to the
Are
garage.
you trying to say that Doc might not be all there?
I don't know. Like, he is, but he isn't.
Are you trying to say he's an eccentric crazy guy? Because
Yeah, it's just like, who would do that? Like, I mean, running out of your
eccentric
own
crazy
house
guy.
and like
Do
you're
that.
leaving the stranger in your house to do whatever. I just thought it
Yes.
was kind of funny.
Yeah. Nobody has two television
you know who
sets.
Doc kind of reminded me of in this movie? He reminded me a lot of Uncle Fester for some reason,
Oh, gee.
I thought he kind of reminded me of
or
the Klingon captain in Star Trek 3.
the homeless guy from Dennis the Menace, even. Or wait, you know who he really reminds me of is that guy from. You ever see that show Taxi? Okay, enough of my cheesiness.
I thought it was funny. He called it a rhythmic ceremonial ritual. A dance.
The dance.
Oh, yeah?
Rhythmic
Yeah.
ceremonial ritual.
There's a rhythmic ceremonial ritual coming up next Saturday.
That's funny, yeah.
Like, just so proper.
Of course, you can't talk about this
Yeah,
movie
the way he would
with-
talk about teenagers socializing
Yeah.
and interacting, he almost looked at it like he could have narrated it as a nature documentary
Yeah.
or something.
You can't really talk about this movie without mentioning Darth Vader from Planet Vulcan.
I was about to say, I remember laughing hysterically at that the
Yes.
first time.
Yes,
There's
yes.
our Star Trek reference.
That, Planet Vulcan, that he just combined the two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had never understood how he did the voice, though. Like, how did he get his voice to sound like
I mean,
that?
did he
'Cause
just
didn't even
lower it
sound-
himself?
He didn't sound like him at all.
Was it just a mask in his face?
It sounded like it was coming through the headphones to me, but I don't know. I'm not
Maybe
sure.
maybe it was like one of those masks when you talk into it. There's a voice changer inside or something.
It was just
Wait a
like
minute.
a hazmat
Wait a
suit.
second.
It was coming through the headphones, so he probably recorded.
What
Something
mask?
on the
It was
tape.
a hazmat suit, right?
Yeah.
Okay. For some reason, I was picturing an actual Darth Vader mask.
Oh.
Because that Walkman probably had a built-in mic with the ability to record stuff on it. Maybe he recorded his own voice doing something so that it would play through the headphones
No.
so that George could hear it. Maybe. I'm speculating.
I got a continuity error for you.
Uh-oh.
When Marty shows Doc the video footage he shot, never mind that now. All that, he was still pointing it down. It didn't look like he was even recording, but yet when Doc plays back the tape, it was as if he was pointing
yeah,
up.
I
Not a
noticed
big
that.
deal, but just something.
Yeah. The scene where George goes into the diner and he's about to try to ask Lorraine to the dance, and he says, "You're my density," and all that stuff. And he says to Lou...
I use that line all the time.
He says, "Lou, give me a milk chocolate." He gets the chocolate milk.
Yeah. One drink.
I don't think anyone else noticed this, but I noticed it. Maybe you guys did too. Let me know if you
Splashed.
did. When he slammed the milk down,
Yeah.
it splattered onto Lou. Lou was right there in the background, and the actor, you can see all this happen. It happens so fast, but you can see it. Because Lou, the actor who's playing Lou, has like basically white clothes on, and suddenly you see all these brown dots and specks all over his like collar and his sleeve, and the actor looks at it, but then he does this. He looks at his shirt, but then he looks up. And he looks around the room real quick, and he's trying to play it off like nothing happened, just to keep the scene going, so that they don't have to cut and redo.
I noticed it splashed. I didn't notice
it got on Lou.
Stuff,
it was so funny.
We'll have to look at that later.
He's used to teenagers throwing milk at him.
You just see him go look down and look around, and like he tries to act like it's nothing.
So, how hard would it be to have to fake a date with your mom to get her with your dad?
What was your question?
I'll let Dave go first.
Think about that. Have to go out on a date with your mom.
Yeah, that's really
faking
awkward.
as if you're gonna.
Well, the worst part is
come on to her.
The way Lorraine was acting, she was boy crazy.
Yeah.
I really feel like Futurama touched on that when Fry went back to the past and slept with his own grandma.
I never saw that.
Remember about that.
So he is his own grandfather. That show is great.
I don't really know anything about Futurama, other than the neutral planet with the beige alert and that stuff was so funny.
I don't remember that part.
They're I don't know, it's a side thing. Anyway, I don't want to go off on a tangent.
I love the Marty escaping Biff skateboard scene. So that was
Biff is always funny. That actor that they got to play Biff.
Tom Wilson.
The people in the diner, they're like, it's like he's on a board with wheels. They've never seen, because it's hilarious, because no one's ever seen a skateboard before. I should have
Wikipedia'd skateboards and saw when they came out. Probably in the 70s.
I thought it was funny when I started watching Freaks and Geeks to see Tom F. Wilson in that.
Was he in that?
Yeah, he was the coach. He eventually
you're right.
hooks up with, dang it, what was the nerdy kid's name? Stretch?
That show had a lot of, geeky famous people in it as background characters.
Thomas Wilson, yeah.
Thomas F. Wilson. He actually has done a lot of voice work on animated shows, too. He did a lot on SpongeBob is the big one.
Oh, really? Who was he in that?
Well, he played various people over the years. But I think the biggest character that he's ever played was there was a bully in Mrs. Puff's boating school. Okay. I think his name was Flask or something like that. And he was like, "Hi, SpongeBob, I'm going to kick your butt."
Oh, yeah.
That was him. And and so the whole episode is SpongeBob. He's worried that he's going to get his butt kicked.
Did he tell him make like a tree and leaf?
Well, I don't know about that. But he's also played a lot of other characters on SpongeBob, and he's also been on Batman, the animated series, as a character named Tony Zuko, which is a whole thing.
So he does a lot of voice work, is what you're saying?
Yes, yes. But, yeah, mostly on SpongeBob.
He did a song, I guess, to answer the most commonly asked questions of him by fans.
He just made a little song?
He made a little song about, basically, he said he's always asked, certain, X number of questions. So he has a little song, and he would answer these questions in the song.
Sing it to me.
he was a great actor. Him and both his dad.
Crispin
Glover. They were both really good and convincing, both in 85 and in 55. They both seemed like they were Marty's age when he went back to the past. Yeah. And they both seemed like they were actually adults in 1985.
And I gotta say also, the makeup is amazing for making them look
That's
older.
where I put the exception on Leah Thompson again. She was great in 55. Yeah. But in 85, I don't think her makeup was as good, and they kind of just gave her a raspy voice to make her seem like she's older.
I was completely convinced.
Well, they said they wanted to show them older first, so you kind of just went with it. It
probably worked better that way, to see them older than younger, and back to older.
Right.
It never hit me, honestly, I don't know why, until more recently. Biff is basically an attempted rapist. It never really hit me.
I mean,
what was he going to do? Yeah,
I
he
guess,
was going to rape her.
I guess that.
I know it's kind of heavy. We don't,
That's but a Back to the Future.
But I mean, real talk. I mean, that's kind of dark. It never.
There are a lot of dark themes in this movie. I never thought about that.
Yeah,
but that's very true, I guess.
And here's another point. Why would George McFly hire the guy that bullied him, beat him up, and attempted to rape his future wife? Why would you have him around your children?
Because you're above him. just to show him. Oh yeah,
you know,
no, you have a point there.
Maybe it is just to put him in his place.
Unless
so
they
speak.
didn't think that whatever he did in the car was that big of a deal, but it was pretty serious. It seemed like.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. Like, this movie is PG-13, right?
No.
Or is it just PG?
I think this
PG.
is still before there was PG-13.
All right, so
Yeah. All three are PG.
But it is
well,
PG.
it's not specifically made for kids, so you can watch it as a kid. But there's swearing, there's smoking, there's drug use, there's rape, there's incest, all those kind of themes in it. But it doesn't seem like it's an inappropriate movie though, really. Like, you watched it as a kid. Your dad went through and censored the bad words and still let you watch it.
Yeah, I mean, but a lot of those things did go over my head. Like, I mean, I just...
Still, a lot of things will go over kids' heads, but at the same time, you don't want to, like, if something's really bad, you're like, yeah, it's not for you.
Right.
But, like, this is a movie, like, you can let your kids watch, and, like, don't swear.
Yeah. I mean, there was a lot more censoring going on in part 2, because that one is way worse than any of them, but, yeah, I get what you're saying.
One of the things that I thought was really funny, going back to the beginning of the movie, before they go back in time when the terrorists first show up, Doc has a gun. I just thought that was really funny, because I don't picture him with one, and I don't picture him... He's not the type of person I would want to have one.
Did you notice what kind of gun he has?
No.
A revolver.
It's like a Western-style revolver.
I don't know if it was quite Western.
It looked like a Western... Like,
well, I'm
it looked
assuming
like an
because he knew
antique.
who he was dealing with.
Yeah, I'm sure he got it for the
gun.
terrorists, but I just, like, I can't... He's like this crazy scientist guy, and then he just whips out a gun.
Or also, you
very
think too,
antique-y.
like he had the money from the insurance. From,
Yeah.
and
Probably
he
got
had
it at a pawn store or something.
Yeah, I mean, here's what I want to know is how did he also get in contact with these terrorists in the first place?
Where was the FBI?
And
It's
at the very end of the movie, they like, oh, happy ending, we're alive, everything's great. And just walk away from that. Like, these guys crashed into a little photo kiosk thing.
Yeah.
Like, not necessarily that they died, but, like, there's two terrorists right
maybe
there.
they got knocked out.
Okay, but still, at some point they're going to get up and...
How is Pete going to give Mr. Swirly his pictures now?
What?
Pete and Pete?
What?
Josh kind of knows what I'm talking about.
I know Pete and Pete.
You never watched it?
I said, I know Pete and Pete, yeah.
I don't know what the Back
there was
to
that
the
ice
Future
cream man,
connection
Mr.
is.
Swirly. And
Okay.
there's an episode, they couldn't figure out who he was, so they
Yeah.
started going through his pictures, because they worked in one of those picture booths.
Oh,
So they started going through his pictures, but he
okay.
always had the thing on his head.
Yes,
Oh,
yes.
that was-
Yeah, I remember him, and they never show him either.
Nope.
What's funny, I want to go back to you when you said that it's funny how Doc had a gun, because it's funny when Doc went to fire it, he almost seemed like he was frantic about it, and he was like, he had like butterfingers basically. He looked like he was trying to like get it to aim right, and then when he couldn't,
Yeah,
I mean, I don't think he was experienced with it.
Right.
He was just...
He would have been better off with a laser he invented or something. But yeah,
what's funny about that to me is just not. I'm sorry that I have to do this, but in part 3, he's got that long shot, and it's just a funny character development how he would go from that.
You would have to at that period of time
because at that
anyone
point
could do anything,
or even just to eat.
At that point, Doc had been living in that time for months, and he's become. It's funny how he's become so good at using a gun by that point. So.
Yeah.
What else you got there, Jet?
I just want to talk about a little bit about the theme. It's one of the best and most recognizable themes ever.
This movie, not only is the orchestrated stuff great because it's
Yeah.
it's
theme is
John
amazing.
Williams.
No, it's not.
It's not. It's who is
It's
it?
Alan Silvestri.
Yes, that's true.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, what I thought
Delete that. I'm an idiot.
what I find cool about the movie is you really got kind of 3 different types of music. You got the 80s music, you got the 50s music.
Yeah,
you
there's
got the
2
orchestrated
soundtracks.
music.
Yeah, that's just gonna say. Not only is the orchestrated stuff good,
Yeah.
but the stuff from the 50s is great, and the stuff from the 80s
This
is
And
yeah.
I was, again, watching from just based on the behind-the-scenes stuff they were talking about when he was talking with the composer about, like, you know, what do you want me to do? Like, do you want me to have a big score? And he said, big, make it as big as possible, because he was worried that, you know, because there's not, like, big gunfights and there's not a lot of effects stuff. In a way, it's a lot of times it gets associated with sci-fi, but he was saying, like, how there's really not that much effects shots in the movie.
Yeah.
But basically to try to make it as big as possible
Yeah.
with the score. So yeah, you got those 3 kinds of music, you know, in there, which is kind of interesting.
Well, there's 2 soundtracks. If you go to buy that, like if you search on Amazon,
One with the 50s
you
and
got
80s
the
and
one,
the one with the score.
Yeah, you got the one with like the songs,
Yeah.
and then you got the other with the just
And the Power of Love was written specifically for this movie, right?
The Power of Love,
Back in Time?
they asked Huey Lewis to do a song, and he said that he basically
And Back in Time,
how am I do a song that says Back to the Future, and he said they don't have to have that in it. But then he did a second song, which is Back in Time, which does reference specific events or things.
Both the songs are great. I like Huey Lewis. I know you do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Heart and Soul.
What?
Got a new duck?
Yes, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's funny how Huey Lewis is kind of connected to certain movies too.
Yeah.
It was great that he showed up. The movie soundtrack is great. I really like the idea of this movie because, like, what you said, that they got the idea because somebody was going back and looking at old pictures of their dad and stuff. And, like, I don't know how many times I thought, like, what was life like in the 50s? What were my parents like when they were growing up, you know, when they were kids, or just, you know, kids in general at that time, and, like, how great it would be to be able to go back and just take a look at all that stuff.
Yeah.
If I had a working time machine, the two things that immediately pop in my head would be to go back to, like, the 1950s era and just take a look, see what's going on. And then the other one would be, I want to see dinosaurs.
I can see that.
I want to go back to something that we did not touch on very much from the beginning of the movie. And that was after Marty got home, saw the wrecked car in the driveway, and the confrontation between his dad and Biff are happening in his house. And so there's a couple of funny things that we didn't even talk about. First thing is, when Marty starts to ride his way home, he's riding on the back of a police car. I think that's extremely kind of like dangerous, obviously. To do. I mean, why would Marty risk? Obviously, if he was to get caught, he'd be arrested. So
I'm sure he'd get in trouble or a talk.
Well, they show him hunch down further when he does that.
Yeah, but still, it's like a huge risk.
I'm sure like the police officer would give him talking to, but it almost had that kind of that small town feeling.
Yeah,
especially in the 50s, but even still in the 80s, like it had that where like, Marty, you knuckleheads, knock that off. You know, it'd be like the kind of response you'd get.
The other thing I wanted to mention is during the scene where George is like getting talked to by Biff, and George is like, you know, wouldn't your insurance pay for the damage? And Biff says, my insurance? It's your car. Your insurance would pay for it. Yeah. It's so funny because that's not how car insurance works.
And doesn't technically every car has a blind spot?
Yes, that's the other thing. Every
car you have to at some point look, because there's a certain
all cars
area,
have blind spots. Why didn't you tell me the car had any blind spots?
I never noticed any blind spot before
when I would drive it.
Hi, son.
So funny. There's a lot of funny stuff in there that I imagine.
I spilled beer all over me when that car smashed into me.
Who's gonna
pay my cleaning bill? It's like you're basically drinking and driving.
That's so good.
It's funny because Marty, like, he already knew that Biff was a jerk.
Yeah. It's so funny.
But how weird is it? You're saying, like, for you to try and, like, pretend to date your mom for a minute, so your mom and your dad. First of all, trying to get your mom and dad to hook up is just weird.
But and
it's also weird, you know, being around your mom like that too. But how weird also is it to find out that your dad is like a peeping Tom pervert too?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and I saw that too. That he was talking about it. They kind of wanted to show that, hey, it is weird to think of our parents as, you know,
human.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That was kind of the thing. Like, basically, that one day we are going to be our parents.
Yeah. Imagine all the dumb stuff we've done through our lives.
Yeah. Oh, gee.
We never saw our parents like that, but our parents had to have done some weird stuff at certain times, and I'm sure our kids will grow up thinking the same thing, like, oh, like if they knew what we've done.
Yeah.
You know?
Yes, for sure. I could tell you some stories, but they're not podcast appropriate. But, you know, I think it's funny that, like, you think, okay, so the main goal of the movie is obviously get my parents back together so everything works out well with you know my existence. But, you know, not only do that, but they go ahead and take it a step further by fixing Marty's problem. He fixes his parents' problem. They both become, like, the mom's taking care of herself. She's obviously not an alcoholic. The dad's more bold. You know, he is
he's got more confidence.
Writer.
Yeah.
But then they go ahead and say, let's also, you know, Marty wanted to be a musician. He was always afraid to play in front of people, or he, you know, what if they tell me I'm no good and whatever. So they fix, like, that issue. It fixes, like, they just put the extra mile to.
The brother goes from being kind of like a lazy freeloader to a successful businessman.
That's the part I do have a note on that. Like, how did that affect the other two kids? and yet they're still, are they living at home, or are they
It
a Tyson
seemed like
family
they were
where
still
they're
living at home.
like Robert?
Oh,
and
his brother
everybody
was
else?
Jimmy Olsen too, wasn't he?
Yes.
Yes.
From the Superman.
Yeah.
But
movies.
okay, he's wearing
And
a suit and
Supergirl.
tie.
Uh-huh.
The girl's talking about her boyfriends.
You know, he had that Mickey shirt on in the picture. How great would it have been if he was wearing like a Superman shirt?
Yeah, but
That's a
like,
missed opportunity there.
but you know, or
Although, this was
maybe it's
before
like
Superman though, or
No, it was actually
After, I
It was. They were 3 movies in with Superman.
so. I
by
just
the time this
unless
came
they're
out.
basically like a tight knit family where like everybody loves Raymond, where they just come over and have breakfast
It
together.
could have been that,
you
but
know,
it didn't
before
seem
work.
that way.
But yeah, it seemed like they were still living there. Marty, I
How
always
did
wear a
the
suit to the
how
office.
did his
Yeah,
sister
yeah.
change? His sister didn't change at all, did she?
No, remember, because before she was like, well, how am I ever going to meet anybody? And then, which
And then
was
she has
it,
a boyfriend.
Greg or Craig? I can't keep with all your boyfriends.
But she
Yeah.
looked the same. She's still frumpy.
Well, there's that. But, having parents that are more confident in the fixed up timeline.
Well,
at the
sure,
end
but like you would have
will
thought, like
have
because
a better effect on
his
how
brother
the kids
went
are
from
raised.
being a bum to a guy in a business suit. His dad went from being a loser, like spineless worm, to a guy with confidence and actually looking pretty decent. And then his mom went from being depressed and overweight and smoking to somebody who's healthy.
Right,
and
but even their relationship was, yeah,
yeah, but then like the sister, she's exactly the same except she's got a boyfriend now.
Okay.
I mean, they didn't have her dress exactly the same, but I got you.
What's really funny is you said that is the character's
Dave.
name is Dave, right?
Correct.
You said he went from being a bum to being a guy in a business suit. I hate to do this again, but in Back to the Future 2, there's actually a deleted scene where Dave is a bum.
Yeah.
And he was kicked out of like the Biff's Casino, Clock Tower, Hotel, whatever thing. And you see him and he's like actually the Newtown bum. Or not the Newtown, but he's a bum and he's homeless and he's got like the beard.
What do you think, Josh? Do you think Dave is a bum?
Dave's something, all right. Can't figure it out what yet.
I'll figure it out one
Okay,
day.
so I think it's interesting how they keep adding problems, like during the whole like the big race to get to the lamppost for the clock tower thing.
Yes,
Like,
yes.
So first it's about, let's write this letter. Then the plug comes undone. Then the car stalls. Then the plug is plugged in on one side, but it's not on the other side. And
It's
like, they
always
just keep
something.
adding like
Yeah.
last minute, like, oh my goodness, how are they going to get
Suspense,
this
suspense.
done? But here's what I want to know. So the plug barely reached when it was going all the way, but yet he loops it around twice to zip line down it. That plug would have never made it back in.
No.
You could tell that the line had a little slack in it when it was hooked up to the clock tower, and they had that long.
No, I'm with Josh here. I
It
think
wasn't.
that
It wasn't. I mean, you could
It seemed
see
too tight before.
You could see a little bit of slack. I mean, I don't know. It's feasible.
Okay, so
Plausible. I mean,
George punches the biggest bully in school, but then he's gonna let this little pipsqueak, "Scram, McFly, I'm cutting in." Like, what?
that is kind
Like-
of a I guess
Yeah, that was a
you
little
slay
bit
a
odd.
dragon, but I'm afraid of a fly.
Old habits
like,
die
it's just
hard.
Like, what? I
And,
don't know. I just never. I wouldn't even give any thought to that. And she clearly didn't. She was like kept calling him like.
That was a little odd. Maybe it was like the final step you needed to like
I
be like,
guess.
I am confident now.
Okay.
I always found that scene to be really heroic. Like as a kid, when George punches Biff and knocks him out and gets the girl, and I always found that really exciting as a kid because
That's what you wanted to happen?
As a kid, I was always kind of a nerdy kid that got bullied a lot.
Yeah.
So after this movie came out, you went around punching everybody.
Once.
Who'd you punch?
We'll
talk about that later.
Well, no, I was
wanna
in
know.
I was in like second grade, and I went up to some random older kid who was like in sixth grade or something like that. And I went up behind him. I didn't see
You
me
sucker
coming.
punched him.
And I balled up my fist. and
Was
I-
he jerked you?
No. Random kid I just randomly picked.
Oh.
And I just went up to this older kid. He was like 4 or 5 years older than me. And I just, bam, punched him in his like lower back. And then he turned around and looked at me. And I was like, and then he just walked away. Nothing came of it. It was the funniest
you just
thing
wanted
ever.
to beat someone up, like.
Yeah, and so I was just like, man, Back to the Future, yeah.
Let me talk about the jack-up theory.
The what?
The jack-up theory.
Oh.
We've talked about this.
Okay.
We have not. Is it possible to jack up the car an inch, 2 inches off the ground so the wheels will spin freely, have the cord going from the clock tower straight into the antenna, into the flux capacitor, hold your foot on the gas so it's 90 or whatever you need it to be, and just wait for it? Does it have to actually be moving? All they said, it has to be going 88 miles per hour. It could still be going 88 miles per hour. And you would only fall once you went back in time. You'd only fall like an inch down and then be moving.
Well, here's the thing.
And it's not dramatic. It's not suspenseful. It's not exciting.
Here's
Granted.
Here's the only problem I can think of with that plausibly is you got the fact that this now on the DeLorean on the back of it is where the vortex generator is, and the vortex generates in front of the car, and if the car is jacked up, not moving, then you're not going to be able to go into that. You're just going to probably see like a bunch of blue glowy lasers forming at the front of the car, but since you're not going anywhere...
It's opening a door and then
you have to move into it?
Yeah,
you have to move into it.
I can kind of accept that.
It's the only thing I can think of. And if you're jacked up and stationary, not going anywhere, it's just going to open and close, and you might see a big explosion in front of the car, but nothing...
I'm willing to accept that.
Yeah, that's the only problem. But because I've thought about that too.
Okay.
Like,
very well.
Yeah. What
do you think, Brandon?
I think that I don't know enough about how it works to make a call.
So there's vortex generators.
No.
Well, yeah, because the little white thing.
I don't know
if like little like lasers. It opens a portal.
The whole back end of the car has got that those things that wind around the sides, fine. And then there's like the main one on top.
Okay, why does it
there's also one that goes along
miles
the
an
front.
hour though? Is it like the moving of the tires that generates the power? Or is there something about it actually moving through space?
No, why?
I don't know if they ever... The only reason I've heard
we don't know how that part of it works.
They did, yeah. Why it's 88, no one really knows. They just picked a good number.
So we don't know if you could just spin the tires. I assume if you could, then they probably would have done that. Either that or just movie logic. Be
exciting.
Right. But just to have like a plausible explanation, every time they show the time traveling effect, you see the vortex kind of coming over the car as it's moving. Like, you would see like water bouncing off the windshield or something during a rainstorm. You get that effect that it's encompassing and engulfing the car as it's moving, and it's going to completely engulf it when you're at 88 miles an hour. And I mean,
that sounds reasonable to me. I'll go with that. Yeah.
That's
little piece of bonus trivia: the speedometers of DeLoreans did not go up to 88.
It's
apparently.
true. It's true.
So they had
what?
The speedometer.
How did it not go up to 88?
I don't know. They say
what did it go up to?
Probably like 80.
Yeah. So basically, they had to put a different. Well, they had to do a lot of work. They said that the DeLorean is one of the worst engines ever. They had to put like I can't remember, it was Mustang engines, and they bought.
If you try to buy a DeLorean nowadays, you won't get the original
hopefully.
engine.
But are they making DeLoreans again?
Yeah.
Okay.
They make them using old parts.
I think they said they bought. Was it 7 DeLoreans for the movie? Like ones for different scenes. Like ones would have a camera mounted right here, so when he's driving, it's right there.
A lot of DeLorean fans were unhappy with that, by the way, because they're basically saying that the movie crew ruined a whole bunch of DeLoreans, like welding and mounting things to the body of the car, and every time.
You gotta shoot a movie.
What I would say to that is get over it, you mechanic.
No, but I mean more so it happens like a lot of DeLorean owners nowadays. Anytime you hear about some guy who's transformed their DeLorean into the Back to the Future version, you'll have a lot of DeLorean owners who get upset and they're like, "Why would you ruin a perfectly good DeLorean?"
All right, so
anyway, but yeah, they had to put brand new engines in it.
We're kind of getting towards that a little bit here. One of the things I wanted to think, like, what Marty set the clock 5 minutes back or 10 minutes back, something like that, so he could get to docking time norm.
10.
Why would he go back like more? A day or something or a week?
Exactly. He could. Yeah. It really does make no sense. Here's what I want to know. So the big scene when the terrorists first come, attempt to shoot Marty, the gun doesn't work, and he was able to jump in the whole loop around. The terrorists crash into the thing. Okay, great. Did they shoot? I wonder if they shot that from up that because it was like the parking lot went down a slight hill. I wonder if they actually shot it from both angles at the same time, because it looked like when they show Marty from up there, and you're only seeing the back of his head.
Oh, at the end of the movie?
Yeah, you're only seeing the back of his head, which I think was a stand-in. So you're only seeing him. You're seeing the real Michael J. Fox down there. So it was consistent with what you're seeing close up with what you're seeing there.
It's very likely.
The only thing is, well, no, I guess that would work, because I was going to say you had to have a camera crew close enough to see him.
Yeah.
But then for the main shot where he runs into the car. I don't know.
The only difference was they obviously had a shorter. The car chase was a shorter sequence because
it was just
obviously
edited.
you don't need to have that same.
Yeah, it could have
length.
been edited.
Yeah, which obviously it works out, but I bet they filmed it just from.
So, is there anything else on your list there?
Yeah,
Couple things.
I've got a couple things too.
Yeah. Okay.
Johnny Be Good.
Okay.
That song, when I heard that song as a kid, that was what got me into oldies music. I got into the 50s. I because of Johnny Be Good, I remember as a kid I had a cassette tape of Chuck Berry's Greatest Hits, which opened the door, for me it opened the door to a whole realm of 50s music and 60s music, and then I started listening to 50s, 60s, and 70s music in the 90s. And so as far as I was aware, I was like the only kid at school in the 90s listening to music from the 50s, 60s, and 70s.
So you're the only old man in your grade?
Basically, yeah. And I mean, I really
that song actually kind of annoys me a little bit, or at least it did when I saw that, because before I ever saw the movie or heard that song, I would watch wrestling with my dad. There is a wrestler called Johnny Be Bad. Be Good just sounds wrong to me. It should be Bad.
The song works for that scene, but I don't think it's a very great song.
It sounds like
I like a lot of.
I liked it.
I like Bill Haley and his comments, like that kind of stuff better.
Yeah.
But
It just works. They just need something that sounded 50s-ish to get
at the end of
Plus, they can make the joke about Chuck Berry.
yeah.
At the end of the song, he says, you guys aren't ready for that yet, but your kids are going to love that. How many, I've lost count. I've lost track how many artists since then have said that at the end of a song they've recorded, or I've been at concerts before where the person on stage
say that?
said, you guys weren't ready for that, but
What I
your
think
kids
was
are going to
funny
love it.
is the end where he's going all nuts with the guitar. He's doing an impression of several different rock bands.
Yes.
The Who.
He does
the windmill.
He does
the
AC/DC.
kicking the amplifier was somebody else's. I used to know all of them.
When he was doing the Chuck Berry duck walk. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah. No. He does the behind the head playing.
Yep.
I know they call the one the windmill.
It's just a big group of everything. Any kid would have tried to imitate that if they were playing guitar in the 80s.
Yeah.
I think it's funny that, Doc had to wait 30 years from his point of view
to see Marty again.
And to be, that must have been a very exciting point because from his point of view, Marty leaves. So from Doc's point of view, he still had to wait 30 years to catch up to Marty. And then
30 years-ish.
Okay, yeah, okay, well, yeah. Depending on how long, maybe 20 years, I don't know, or 25 years.
So they were friends since he was 6. Marty's
fine.
parents
It's probably
need
more
to
like
learn
28,
about
29
stranger
years.
danger.
Yeah, 28, 29 years. Let's say he met him when he was 18 or, I don't know.
Well, he's 17 in the movie, so maybe met him when he was 16.
20
so
years,
29, 30 years, whatever.
Okay, it's crazy to think he had to, it's very exciting. You find out what you're going to be capable of, that your experiment or your idea that you had just a couple days before is a success, and you got to wait so long. And then I also thought how it was cool how they turned the tables. So when first Marty goes back, he knows things about Doc that Doc has to be, by choice, left in the dark about, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Because he says, no man should know, whatever, blah, blah, blah. It was his choice, but regardless, he knows, and I'm sure he was dying in a way, even that struggle to, just tell me. But then a part of you, knows, no, I can't do that. So, but regardless, Marty had to keep Doc in the dark. But then, by the time, from Marty's point of view, by the time him and Doc do meet, Doc already knows who this kid is, that he and him are going to have, be good friends, that he's going to have this adventure with him. So basically, when he meets him, he knows in a few years, I'm going to create this time machine, and, so he has to keep Marty in the dark, that, hey, kid, for whatever reason, me and you, we're a team, we're going to have this connection. And I just think that's really interesting how it flips it. I never really thought of that.
It's a cool thing to think about.
I always think of Doc's being left in the dark from Marty, but not that when once Doc catches up with Marty, he now knows stuff before Marty knows it.
Right.
Because that hasn't happened yet. It's interesting to me.
Time travel is always weird. We've experienced it through Star Trek, through a bunch of things, but it always works different. Nobody really knows how it would work.
Yeah.
and you're like just trying to think of how it would affect everything else, or like because there's several different kinds. There's the kind where you can go back and view things, but you don't affect anything. Like you're not there.
Yeah.
Kind of like It's a Wonderful Life.
Yeah.
Is an example of that.
That was the inspiration for this, by the way.
Okay. And then also there's the kind like in this where you go back and you can affect everything. But then there's also the kind where like you go back, you make any slight little change, it creates a new
The
universe.
whole butterfly effect.
Yeah,
thing,
and then just like there's so many different
there's
ways
like
of looking at it.
there's the kind where you do change things. Well, you do participate, but you were destined to change the effect. And
that's the river theory, I believe.
That's the Jar Jar Abrams theory.
Well, no, that's actually called the predestination paradox, where you were meant to go back into the past.
Oh, okay, I see what you're saying.
And if you
I thought you were talking about
if you didn't
like,
go back into the past, then things would be.
I said
altered.
Jar Jar Abrams because of how when Nimoy went back or Spock went back into the past in the separate universe and everything got ruined, but still that crew came together for the original Enterprise.
Well, that's actually not. See, because you can affect.
Isn't that like almost an alternate universe?
Yeah, that's
He went through time
The JJ
and-
it is an
universe.
alternate universe, but like still that
Yeah.
crew that like you were just saying Destiny, they were destined to come together, so they still did, even though circumstances are different.
The way I've heard that described is, okay, let's say you have a river. You build a dam, but that river is destined to go this way. At some point, water is going to start spewing out in different directions and ultimately keep going down that
So
path.
you're pulling a Star Trek right now.
Well, anyway, that's just
Somebody
one of
techno babbles, and you're like, "Oh, it's just like a
Okay.
dam." Yeah, it'll find a way.
Going.
Just like Jeff Goldblum said, it'll find a way.
Life
Time
finds a
travel
way.
finds a way.
Yeah.
Time travel finds a way.
What other points you guys have?
You know that-
because I'm done.
I just got a couple of things. First of all, I thought it was interesting that after Marty gets back to the future and they show the helicopter shining its light on the clock tower, and you see the missing piece
Yeah.
of the ledge
Yeah.
where Doc
Okay.
had broke it off. When Doc was hanging
There's
from
lots
it,
of detail.
and they broke it
Yeah,
off.
they
and
definitely
so-
did a good job with that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But overall, that whole scene of Marty coming down the road and hoping he gets to the point where he needs to be at the right moment, that was always really like intense to me. I had I would just get every time I watched it, I would just get anxious, like I'd never seen it before. Every time
It is funny how,
That's
like,
good.
even though you know what's coming,
Yeah.
in a good movie, it still sucks you right in.
Yeah.
And yes, I know that this movie was never meant to have sequels initially, but I really have a hard time splitting.
You did
It's-
pretty good. I'm proud of you. You
it's
did pretty darn good.
Isolating this movie from the other two is really hard for me, but I really do, knowing what happens in the sequels, I appreciate how much that there are these perceived things that they use to set up the sequels.
It kind of reminds me of the Matrix sequel a little bit, where I don't think they really planned on having.
Right.
Did I say the Matrix sequel? The Matrix
The
trilogy.
Matrix, yeah.
I don't think they really planned on having
Right, 'cause-
trilogy at first or
No,
sequels,
right.
but then they're like, okay, well, this made a lot of money, let's go for it. So
Yeah.
they made 2 and 3 together, but those movies kind of stunk. I
But
thought.
again, that's a great example of
Some.
movies where the movie initially, there are things that set up the sequels that they may or may not have ever intended on elaborating on, like in The Matrix.
You can make a sequel without making the movie intended for a sequel. You can still go back and have callbacks.
No,
and
but
stuff.
like there are things specifically in The Matrix where you don't know what's happening unless you go and watch the sequels.
Well, but they weren't planning on
Like
that,
the
though.
hidden camera where
I
Neo
don't
is
know
like
what's happening.
Neo.
I don't know. I
saw
think
those movies.
Dave's in the Matrix.
You
right now.
never saw the.
I saw the first one once eons
Okay.
ago. I never saw the sequels.
Okay.
And I also, do you know Sugar Boy? Those Sugar Boy?
Sugar Boy,
I sent you the link. I see you didn't watch it. There's these little,
maybe.
like funny little videos about like what it's like from a child's point of view telling a story, and one of them is called "Bike to the Future," and it's about this time travel bicycle. And this guy goes through all different times, but he's referencing Steven Spielberg movies, so he's going to all these different time periods.
Oh, that movie's coming out in a little
Yeah,
bit.
but what I think is funny is Steven Spielberg did not direct this movie, and I've met countless people that always think it was his movie.
Feels like a Steven Spielberg movie, and he was a producer, right?
He
was
from
a
my
producer,
understanding, he
was involved.
was like
lot.
an executive producer because
I
Zemeckis
think-
directed, Bob Gale was the producer, and then I think he was like executive producer.
This may not be the case anymore because now he's old, but Steven Spielberg, he is also a producer for Gremlins, but Gremlins feels very Steven Spielberg to me, or pretty
Okay.
close to it. It has a little bit of the Steven Spielberg in it, like you can feel it.
well, kind of like the Goonies. A lot like Spielberg did not. That was
Yeah, that's a good one. And then also,
Richard Donner.
Poltergeist, even though it's a little bit different, like it
Yeah.
still feels like Spielberg had a heavy hand in
Well,
it.
they were friends. They were friends with each other, Zemeckis, Bob Gale, and
Yeah.
Spielberg.
Yeah.
Anyway, but I just find it funny how many people I hear always say, "Oh, Spielberg has great movies." Well, which ones? Oh, well, this, that, Back to the Future. And I'm
Yeah.
like, he didn't direct this.
Yeah. We can't really...
Or sometimes people think that maybe John Williams was the composer.
Yeah,
You know?
idiots.
We really can't talk about this right now without mentioning the fact that the new movie Ready Player One is coming out, and it's basically a Spielberg montage tribute movie, and there's a giant part of the movie that's got Back
got
to the
the DeLorean,
Future.
yeah.
If
stuff
you'd like
in
to
it.
hear Josh and me and Josh's,
That
if you'd like to hear
Josh and I's.
the
Him and I's.
podcast thoughts on
Him
that
and
movie,
I's.
go back and listen to our
2001.
look at it
Thoughts.
2018 episode.
Yeah, it's actually the episode right in front of this.
Assuming this one comes out right after.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
the only other two things that I would want to say is, like, it seems like when I was a kid, there were 3 trilogies. There was Star Wars, there was Indiana Jones, and there was Back to the
Agreed.
Future.
Yeah.
And, like, we didn't have, all these sequel crazy things. I mean,
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
a lot of James Bond
Sure.
movies. There's been a lot of, like, Friday the 13th movies. Those don't count. Those are something else. But, like,
I'm
those are the 3
looking at them
trilogies.
on my DVD shelf right now. Back to the Future and Indiana Jones and Star Wars.
And then after 2000 something, maybe when Lord of the Rings came out, it's like everybody started getting trilogy happy
hungry,
about
yeah.
everything.
Yes.
Now we have Star Wars as a trilogy of trilogies, or it
Yeah.
will be.
Yeah.
So it's kind of funny, like, and all 3 of those are classics. Those original 3 of each. The only other thing I'd say is I said that if I went back in time, I'd want to go to the 50s and I want to look at dinosaurs. Josh, 2 examples, quick.
If I can only do 2,
Yeah, 2.
Like
oh
hit
man,
two
that
main
is-
points.
That is difficult.
Would you go forward? Would you go backward? And why?
Well, I always wondered: is it possible if time travel existed, would we be able to go into the future? Because aren't we
Well-
we're at the edge of the table right now?
I can tell you that people who have
Hold on, wait,
theorized-
stop.
Dave has gone to the future. and-
Dave knows how this works, so Dave,
No,
explain it to us.
I've actually read about people who theorize about if time travel were to exist, how it would work. Like people who actually have studied
Okay,
in this
what do they
field.
say?
They basically say it would only be possible to travel into the future. You wouldn't be able to go back into the past because they can only send like they've theorized like being able to send like a message or some kind of digital or electronic method or way of sending into the future where like you basically it's involving a
Now,
lot of
I ain't no
complicated
smartest
things.
person in the shed, but I would think that you would only be able to go into the past and not into the future.
But, and I'm not.
Oh, no, wait.
Because time is moving forward already, so people
Yes,
who have theorized
never mind.
it, they've only been able to determine that if we could do anything like this, we could only maybe do something to manipulate the way time is already flowing. You can't go back.
'Cause you're
Well,
against the
okay,
grain.
yeah,
You're
yeah.
going against the grain, basically.
That's what I meant to say. You could only go into the future, not the past. Like, you could freeze yourself, and technically...
Yeah.
That's the idea behind that. And you would be a time traveler, in a sense. Like, if you could freeze yourself, like Schwarzenegger. Like,
Demolition Man?
Demolition Man, yeah.
Like
Man, I'm making
Walt
mistakes
Disney.
tonight.
Like Walt Disney.
Well, that's a rumor, though. He didn't do that.
I know. I'm just playing.
So, where would you go?
Definitely the 80s. Specifically, I'm not sure, maybe like 86, just because, you know, obviously every decade it's a
80s
little
would
like
end up being on my list, too.
yeah, every decade, you know, the first 2 or 3 years, it's kind of very similar to the previous. So really, I think the 80s really kind of started finding its own identity for the 70s. Like, you know, probably like 84, 5, 6, somewhere in there is where it kind of, the music's, you know, and just stuff like that.
And where else?
After that, I don't know. That's hard. I don't know.
Think about it, Dave.
Well, I would definitely go back to biblical times. At least, I would want to go to the time of Christ. I know that's probably, you know, sounds cheesy or whatnot, but that's something I've always wanted to.
We base our calendar around it.
The idea
It's a
of
big event.
BCAD, the big transition there. I've always wanted to, you know, the idea of being able to bring a camera with me and snap some photos from that time. Just a really fascinating concept to me. And obviously I wouldn't want to participate in any of that, but I would really be happy to be an observer.
Where else?
That's a tough one. I think Maybe like the founding of our nation time frame. Like,
All right, so you're pretty historical there.
yeah.
One thing,
In other words, I like America and I like God. So,
so like in the Star Trek episode, something with the time traveler guy,
the episode of Star Trek with time.
A Matter of Time, I think it's called.
Which series?
Next Generation.
Oh, Next Generation.
I believe it's season 6. Anyway, the time traveler guy comes back. It's actually I think it's Matthew Foley. Is that his name? He was in Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
Oh, yeah.
Dad.
Well, I was just thinking about that episode. That's great.
So yeah, I know that. I know.
Basically, spoilers, but okay. The time traveler from the future, you find out he's actually from the past. A time traveler came to him,
He stole his time
killed
machine. Yeah.
and stole all his stuff, and then he's going to the future because he was a
That's a fun idea. I like that.
he's a
That's
failed,
very Twilight Zone.
failed
Yeah.
inventor, so he's stealing future technology to bring into his own time. Okay, great.
Yeah.
The thing that I almost wouldn't want to go
Voyager
too far,
did a very similar
Okay.
episode.
I wouldn't want to go too far back, I believe, because I'd just be worried, like, if I got sick or injured there, if something happened to the time machine, like...
Well, so you'd probably rather be just an observer type of deal then?
I'm just saying, I would be too afraid to go back to, like, the Western days. Like
But you can just see it. Like, you're not affected by anything.
If I could
And you don't
guarantee
affect
that I
anything.
could, like...
You're a chicken.
And that actually goes to a point I was going to make earlier. I would not want to go to the future because I don't want to be spoiled about how things turn out. But I would love to, review some of that stuff from the past myself.
I wouldn't mind making myself rich.
There's a TV show that I think you and I told you about it, like, maybe the first or second episode we ever did, and it's called Timeless, and sounds, exactly what it is.
I think
It's
I've heard of it.
A time machine. I like it. It starts off, like, all right, but, like, I think they actually got pretty good. And so basically they have this, every time travel movie has its own little rules. And one of them is that you cannot go to any year where you were born. Starting the month, day, and year that you were born. And I can't remember exactly.
Now, Quantum Leap did the exact opposite.
Right, yeah. So basically, but there's, these certain rules about it, because there was one point where these guys had to go to the 80s, and they were talking about, like, we're only a few months away from when we were born. And I can't remember if they haven't quite touched on that. But anyway, it's a pretty decent show, and it's got some pretty cool ideas. It's also got a lot of conspiracy theory thing going on about... I'll talk about it later. But anyway, it's a pretty decent show.
Quantum Leap did the exact opposite, where Dr. Sam Beckett...
Yeah, he only goes within the time frame of what he was alive.
Of his lifespan.
Yeah.
He could never leap into anything else. Although they did, they made it possible, like a few episodes.
So what we're trying to say is time is a funny thing. We don't know how it works in the present, and we don't know how traveling through it would work either. As far as this movie goes, it's a great movie.
Yes.
Ready to grade?
Yeah, I'm ready to grade. So, yeah, the movie, like, it has a near perfect cast if it's not perfect already. It's a very fun adventure movie. When I was watching it, I thought to myself, like, this is pretty much a perfect adventure movie. And I think I even read somewhere that they have the script to the movie in California at some school where they present it as the perfect script. I have no problems with the movie. There might be some little tiny things you can nitpick or wonder about, but none of that bothers me. And I think this is only the second time I've done this on the podcast, but I'll give it an A+.
Okay. Dave?
I would give it an A+ as well. I have no problems with this movie. I have nothing but high praise and fond feelings and fond memories and warm feelings. Just nothing but goodness. This movie has significantly affected my life, and there are a lot of things I got into as a result of this movie, including wanting a DeLorean. It's funny you mentioned Bike to the Future earlier.
I'll show you.
Because when I was like in 7th, 8th grade...
Oh, yes.
I remember. I tried to like make my bike look like a time machine. And so since I wasn't driving yet, I got a bunch of like cardboard and arts and crafts things, and I taped it all up to my bicycle, and I tried to make it look like basically the bike version of the DeLorean time
And then
machine.
you stuck the pendant from the Neverending Story on it and drove over to that witch's house.
Well, I don't know about that, but
I'm just thinking about all the stories you've told while you were a kid, while you've been on the podcast. Josh.
Yeah, to me, this is it's a perfect movie in that it really has something for everybody. It has action, it has adventure, it has some comedy, a little bit of sci-fi, romance. It's. And I'm not talking about
Heroes,
Marty and his mom. I'm talking about like when you look at how originally Lorraine and George met, it was really not that great of a, whatever. But like basically, it becomes this, more nice story you want to tell your kids how mom and dad met, and it's got something for everybody. It's got great pacing, like you were saying, like what little things I can gripe about. If I'm even calling it gripes, it's just like more like, hey, I noticed this or I noticed that. It's nothing that takes away from anything. It's a movie you can watch a lot and it doesn't get boring. Like you said, it's exciting.
Yeah, I could watch this thing all the time.
So yeah, I was give it an A++.
Oh.
Is that even possible?
I just made it possible.
Great Scott!
There's no such thing as a perfect movie, but this comes pretty close.
Yeah.
All right, well, that's a good time to wrap it up. Let's get off of this planet of babies and see what lies ahead.
Yes. Right. Where we're going, we don't need podcasts.
Or babies.
See you in about 30 years. I hope so.
I hope so.
All right.
All right, let's get
Check us out on Facebook, YouTube.
Yes.
Podomatic.
Do it. Oh, and by the way, I just want to say I'm happy that I was able to join you guys for this.
Quick, turn it off.
The timing worked out perfectly for this. For me to. Yeah. It's been fun.
It's good having you.
Yes.
All right. We're going to call it a wrap. Good night.
Ta-da.
Wow. Okay.
I was holding that in for a while, so please continue.
Okay. You just broke Josh.
I just broke Josh.
I'm a sucker for.
That's why Huey Lewis needs a new duck.
Okay.